All right, Waxahachie ISD. I hope everybody's having a great evening today. Sorry for the delay. Had this afternoon, I was going out and putting up all the signs for early voting and things of that nature, and it took a little bit longer than I had anticipated it doing so. So, of course, excuse me. Of course, while we're on the topic here, early voting starts tomorrow, April 22nd, and runs through the next Tuesday, April the 29th, with no voting on Sunday. So you have Tuesday through Saturday, a break for Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday of next week. So take advantage of that opportunity. Election Day, of course, is on Saturday, May the 3rd. So hopefully everybody can come out and vote. And of course, I would love to earn your vote. Daniel Hobbs, WISD, place 7. All right. So as always, if you have questions or comments, please make sure you go ahead and post them in the chat section, and I will answer them as best I can as we go through tonight's time together. All right. So a couple things that I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight as we wait on some questions or comments. One thing that, uh, well, let me back up. Here recently, I visited with one of my friends who is a fourth grade teacher in the district, and I specifically had a couple questions for her about Amplify. And of course, Amplify is the district's pre-purchased, pre-packaged reading curriculum. Now, notice I said reading there. In the fourth grade, one of the key components to their curriculum, or to their STAR test rather, is extended construction is extended constructed response, ECR, as we describe it. And ECR is a writing component. So in the fourth grade, students are expected to be able to write an essay of sorts. And this particular teacher let me know that the Amplify curriculum does not have any writing associated with it. It is purely a reading curriculum. So this teacher, again, let me know that and was telling me that they, on their own, outside of the curriculum, outside of their normal planning time, have had to go in and create their own writing prompts and writing questions. Now, having said that, notice I said outside of their own planning time or on their own time. That's because she informed me that the Amplify internalization process. All right, so let's back up here. Internalization process. What does that mean? Well, Amplify, one of its big selling points, and one of the reasons that it allegedly was voted in by a couple board members, is because it was pre-packaged. It was ready to go, and that a brand new teacher who had never instructed in the classroom before could pick up this curriculum and immediately turn it around for instructional purposes. Well, that's not the case, because through the curriculum you have what's called the lesson internalization cycle that takes approximately 45 minutes. So the Amplify lesson is about an hour and a half. The internalization process takes 45 minutes. Teachers generally have a 45-minute conference every day. So what does that mean exactly? Well, what that means is they are using their entire conference time to internalize Amplify lessons. Now, that's just reading. That doesn't give time to work on lesson planning for math, science, or social studies, all of which are very, very key subjects and are important to a well-rounded, high-quality education for our students. So the Amplify curriculum is very unteacher friendly, this particular teacher was telling me. Now, she did say that they also have instituted PLCs, and that sometimes they get to work on the internalization process in the PLC time, but that the PLC generally is used to analyze the data associated from the computerized portion of Amplify. So again, when we look at Amplify, it is a computerized curriculum program. There's very little that the teacher does. A lot of it is the device is set in front of the student. The student reads through a passage, answers questions about the passage, and then they work through the lesson. Now again, the teacher does have portions of the scripted lesson, again scripted, that they go in and provide a few comments to the students. But for the most part, we've got a computer providing the reading instruction. Now, sometimes during the PLC, they do have time to internalize the lesson, but again, the majority of the PLC is used to look at the data associated with the program and how the students are performing, which again, on the surface, sounds great. However, again, where's math, where's science, where's social studies? Math, just as important as reading, because math is a STAAR-tested subject. Again, pushing math to the side, pushing writing to the side, both of which are tested in the elementary STAARs and not providing, the Amplify curriculum is not providing appropriate time for those areas. So again, Amplify, absolutely 100% not the best product for Waxahachie ISD. Now, one thing that has been recently floated out of the curriculum office is the idea of the pause day. The pause day. So I did, again, visiting with this teacher, I called her up and I said, what exactly is a pause day? This is a new term that I've never heard this in my 18 years in education. And what she told me is that in an Amplify unit, which the units are roughly 3 to 4 weeks long, and again, each lesson within that unit is roughly an hour and a half long. So for every 3 to 4 weeks, you will get 1, 2, maybe if you're lucky, 3 pause days. And I said, okay, that's the timeline. What exactly is a pause day? What do you do on a pause day? Because it was put out there recently that the pause days were where teachers could provide differentiated instruction for, say, a special education student or a 504 student, or maybe even some extension for a gifted and talented student. And she said, well, that's not what happens on pause days. I said, okay, tell me what happens on pause days. She said, pause days are our catch-up days because we cannot get through an Amplify lesson in an hour and a half. She says there is way too much content jam-packed into those hour and a half lessons for us to be able to cover everything. So what we end up doing on those pause days are finishing tying up loose ends to lessons that we didn't get to complete. So I asked her, I said, so the contention, the idea that was presented, that the pause days were used to work in small groups with special education students or something like that, is that accurate? And she told me unequivocally, absolutely, that does not happen, at least on her campus. She said, you might get some special education instruction or some differentiated instruction for special education students during the 45-minute PLC time. But there's a caveat to that too. So when we talk about education, we talk about tiers or levels of instruction. So the first one is what we call Tier 1. And Tier 1 is the whole group instruction, when all of the students are together. So this is what generally happens in the 90-minute Amplify block. That's going to be Tier 1 instruction. Now, after the whole group has the instruction, then we break into smaller groups, and we have a little bit of differentiation. That's what we call Tier 2 instruction. And then if there are some kids that are really, really struggling, having a super hard time with whatever the curriculum is, we break those groups down even smaller, maybe even to a one-on-one, one-on-two type situation. And we call that Tier 3 instruction. Tier 3 is your most intensive, targeted instruction for a particular student. So your special education students, your 504 students, depending on where they fall with their disabilities, are going to land somewhere in that Tier 2 to Tier 3 area. So again, that teacher I was visiting with, she told me, she said, Daniel, sometimes you will get some Tier 2 or Tier 3 instruction during the 45-minute PLC period. She said, but wait, in that 45-minute PLC period, it's not me teaching. there's a paraprofessional that comes in, and that paraprofessional watches our classes while we're pulled out of the classroom to go to the PLC period. And she said you might, if you have a really good paraprofessional, can get you some tier 2 or tier 3 instruction. I have lots of questions with that. Lots of questions. My first question is on a special education student, their IEP, their individualized education plan outlines exactly how many minutes of instruction they have to have from a qualified special education teacher and a qualified general education teacher, specifically their tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. A paraprofessional, we appreciate our paraprofessionals, we love them to death, but they're not certified special education teachers. So are we in compliance with those students' individualized education plans or IEPs? The way it sounds, it doesn't sound like we are. And that is a huge, huge problem. I've said this all along. Amplify does not provide for our special populations. And here's a prime example of that. Now, let's talk about GT students for a second. So WIC has a whole department in its, or whole section of its curriculum department devoted to gifted and talented students. As soon as the GT program found out about pause days, they latched onto them. And they sent teachers emails that says, on your pause days, use this time for extension lessons for your GT students. So you have curriculum telling you you've got to use this time this certain way. Again, there's only so much of a pie. There's only so much time that our teachers have with these students. We've got to do better. And again, a new curriculum other than Amplify is going to be much, much better with that. Now, let's also talk about what's called Ed Elements. If you kept up with Amplify at all, you know that the grant that the district got to be able to pay for the Amplify curriculum came with this caveat of, oh, you also have to hire these instructional facilitation companies to train your teachers how to implement the Amplify curriculum. That particular company that WIC chose is called Ed Elements. So again, it was reported that teachers were allowed to supplement the curriculum and add to it and do these things. Teacher told me absolutely not. Ed Elements comes around about once a month and observes teachers. And she said, if you are not doing the lesson exactly as it's scripted, Ed Elements jumps your case. Jumps your case in the middle of your class, then reports back to your principal and jumps your principal's case for not having their teachers follow the scripted Amplify lesson. I don't know about you guys, but that is not an environment that I would like to teach in. 18 years in education, that would be the most ridiculous type of teaching environment possible. And I don't know how our teachers are doing it. And I'm thankful each and every day that they are, because that has to be a very, very difficult environment to teach in, where you are told point blank, you have to do it exactly like this. And if you don't, we're going to scream and yell at you. So our teachers deserve better. They absolutely do. They are the champions for our students, for our children. They deserve better than Amplify. We've got to get a better curriculum. We've got to get a curriculum in that combines reading and writing, editing, all of the English skills into a solid curriculum package. That way our students can be successful. Again, we have been below the state and region averages on STAR scores for several years. We've got to change that. And if we're completely avoiding writing, if our curriculum does not have writing components to it, then how are we going to do that? There's no way we can do that if we don't have writing built into our curriculum, into our curriculum components. So we have to make sure we get all of those things in our next curriculum, because Amplify's got to go. We cannot continue with Amplify. I would be shocked if we do not see significant declines and our elementary reading English star scores this summer. I would be shocked. Again, every district, or excuse me, not every district, the district I worked in previously that used Amplify, we saw a decrease of a letter grade from B to C, C to D each year with the Amplify curriculum. Amplify is not the answer for Waxahachie ISD. Just pure and simple. All right. So I'm going to kind of get off my soapbox there. I wanted to talk about something that recently happened in my personal life. Back on April 9th, I successfully defended my doctoral dissertation. And the title of my doctoral dissertation was Career and College Readiness of Students with Autism in the Greater Dallas-Fort Worth Metropolitan Area. So what I did in that dissertation study is I went in and I did a public information request from the Texas Education Agency for the Career College and Military Readiness Indicator status of students in Dallas and Tarrant counties, of high school students. Specifically looking at, do students with autism fare the same way as other students, general education students, gifted and talented students, emerging bilingual students, all those things. What my research found out is that in Dallas and Tarrant counties in the 2019-2020 school year, so it's had to get the data when I first started the program, and so it was a 3-year program, so it took me a little while to get everything together. But for the 2019-2020 school year, there was not a single student, not one, who was categorized as autism only who met the CCMAR requirements. So, why is that important? It's important because it shows we need to do better. Now, if you look at Waxahachie ISD's CCMAR scores, it's at around 67%. Approximately 67% of the graduates from Waxahachie ISD graduate in a status or in a state that the state of Texas feels that they can go on to a college and be successful there, or go into a career, a trade of some sort and be successful doing that. 67%. So that's 33% of our students who are not career, college, and military ready. That troubles me because what are we doing? Are we preparing students for the future, or are we just making sure kids are in seats? We have one of the finest career and technical education centers in the county. One of the best, one of the brightest. We've got culinary, we've got welding, we've got construction management, we've got barbering, we've got auto mechanics, we've got law enforcement, we've got business. All of these things where these students can obtain certifications that can categorize them as career and college ready. But yet only 67% of our students are in that category of having met those requirements. We've got to do better. We can do better. We've got to learn the system. We've got to learn what exactly kids need to do. And if it's putting kids in a four-way pathway, or excuse me, a four-year pathway, then we need to do that. We talk about graduation endorsements, and whether that be an entrepreneurship endorsement, a STEM endorsement, all those things. But to get those endorsements, you have to be very, very specific in the courses that you take. Some people kind of compare it to a college major. You decide, hey, this is what I'm interested in, this is where I want to go. The problem you run into is when the student decides their junior year or senior year, oh, I don't want to do this endorsement anymore. I want to change it up. And that causes some problems. And so my suspicion is this 33% is probably some of those kids who decided to change endorsements midstream and change what it was exactly they wanted to do. So I think we need to review our policies, look at our policies and say, what are we doing to help make sure that our kids are career and college ready. Waxahachie High School's academic accountability rating, the last time accountability ratings were released, was a B. If we work the CCMR problem, it is likely that Waxahachie High School's accountability rating could go up to an A. And I guarantee you the district would be shouting that from the rooftops. We have an A high school campus. But to do that, it's going to take deliberate planning and deliberate implementation on both fronts, on making sure we have the highest quality curriculum, highest quality educators, and making sure that students are career and college ready. If we cannot get these two things together, we can't get these two things married, then we're going to continue in the state that we're at. We're going to continue being below the state and region averages, and we're going to continue to produce students that are going to have difficulties after high school. And if you want to say that we are failing a third of our students at Waxahachie High School, it is probably a fair statement, fair conclusion to make. As we approach early voting again starts tomorrow. I hope and pray that you will consider your vote and consider your choice very, very thoughtfully, and ask yourself, are we moving in the right direction? Or is it time for a change? Are we moving in a direction that we need to continue what we're doing because we're doing exceedingly well and we can see up on the horizon there are great things ahead? Or do you see a pathway of the same old, continued academic accountability that is below the state and region, continuing to leave behind a third of our students in career and college readiness? Or do you see a pathway where things need to change? Pathway where we need to ask some tough questions of ourselves, some self-reflective questions of how do we make things better? How do we make sure that Waxahachie ISD is a shining star set upon a hill? That it is the district in Ellis County that everybody wants to come to because they're supported by their administration. They've got the highest quality curriculum possible. They have great facilities. They have great benefits packages. All the things that employees want and all the things that employees need. That's the path that I want to go down. That's the path that I believe our teachers, employees, instructional staff, maintenance staff, that's the Waxahachie ISD that I think they deserve, that they want. But right now we're not there. And I don't believe we'll get there with the same board members year after year after year. I think it's time for some new ideas. I think it's time to ask some tough questions of ourselves, some very reflective questions. So this evening, as I kind of wrap up here, I ask for your vote. I ask for you to give me the opportunity to ask some tough questions, to give some new ideas, to hopefully set Waxahachie ISD on the path to be a successful school district where everybody wants to work, where everybody wants to be, because they know it is the best school district in Ellis County. And together we can do that. Again, early voting starts tomorrow, runs through next Tuesday. So 1 week. Again, no voting on Sundays. And then Election Day, Saturday, May 3rd. Hopefully, I will see some of you out there. as we interact at the polls. Love to meet you. Love to be able to sit down and talk with you and make sure that you have all the information that you need for for you to make the decision of who you believe is the best candidate for Waxahachie ISD School Board. Recently, again, kind of wrapping up here. Recently, I made a post on my campaign Facebook page that upon being elected, if I was elected, I would immediately ask for the use of approximately $280,000 in surplus funds to compensate the teachers who were, what's the right word, who were, I'll say harmed, I don't know if that's the right word, but put in a whole lot of effort and for the TIE process, and the district failed them. The district administration failed them. So $280,000 by 31 teachers is roughly a $9,000 one-year stipend. That's the average of all three of the designation levels within the TIE system. A lot of people got a little excited about that. Had some great conversation with some folks. The idea of surplus funds is kind of an interesting topic right now, because the belief is that Waxahachie ISD doesn't have surplus funds. Waxahachie ISD currently has approximately $30 million in its fund balance, and it is expected that Waxahachie ISD will add approximately $2 million to the fund balance just this school year. So the money's there to take care of our teachers who put their blood, sweat, and tears into making sure that our students had the best this year, and then went above and beyond in trying to make sure that they met the criteria for TIE distinctions as set by the district. Additionally, the three positions that got approximately $50,000 raises, the funds are right there. We rescind pay grade 11, and in 2 years we have this amount of money paid for. The argument out there is, oh, well, some of those positions don't even exist yet. Well, even better, because that's a higher amount of money that's been set aside that for those positions once they are created. So $280,000 is a drop in the bucket for Waxahachie ISD to make sure that we take care of our teachers, take care of our educators who do so much for our students each and every day. The other argument was, well, you've got to have 90 days of operating expenses in your general fund. And that is correct, absolutely 100% correct. Texas law does require that. But if you're carrying $30 million in fund balance, that means you're telling me that we're running a $10 million a month bill. I find that hard to believe that we're running $10 million a month. Is it possible? It's absolutely possible. $120 million a year. But again, what you don't see is that if a financial crisis occurred, there'd be a lot of processes happening very, very quickly. They would, the district would implement the reduction in force process. They would cancel lots of contracts and things of that nature. So that number would come down. It would not be 10 million each month for 3 months, even if it is that now. So additionally, a couple years ago, when the board decided they wanted to build an ag barn out by the new high school, they pulled, and don't quote me on the number, but I believe I'm right here. Couldn't find it on the board agendas from 2015, but I believe it was $1.4 million that they pulled out of the general fund to pay for the new ag barn. Now again, absolutely needed, absolutely beneficial to the students. The one out on Howard Road had met its lifespan. It really had. So again, not saying that that was not needed, because it absolutely was, but pulling money out of the general fund for projects and for certain expenses is not unheard of, is my point. $280,000 is, again, a drop in the bucket compared to $1.4 million. So again, I want to make sure our teachers are taken care of. Those 31 teachers who went through the TIA process, I appreciate what you've done. The district doesn't tell you, I do, because I know working in education how difficult that process is. It is it's tough. There's no any other way to say it. It is a tough process. It's a demanding process, and you deserve to be compensated for your efforts. And that is my plan to do so. Again, if I'm elected, I will immediately, my first board meeting, ask for an agenda item for the next board meeting for a vote on the use of $280,000 in surplus funds to be distributed to the 31 teachers and approximately $9,000 stipend for 1 year, with the hope that next year WISD administration figures out and learns from their failures with TIA, and that we will be approved in the next school year. So I didn't get any questions tonight, so I hope you have found this video to be enlightening, insightful, and we're getting down to crunch time. So hopefully you have the information you need to make an informed decision about who to vote for in the upcoming school board election. As always, I'm an open book. I will answer your questions to the best of my ability. So if you have questions, reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, email, Daniel Hobbs for WISD@gmail.com. And again, I will answer your questions to the best of my ability. Hope you all have a wonderful evening. And don't forget, early voting starts tomorrow, Election Day, May 3rd. Daniel Hobbs, WISD School Board, Place 7. Thank you and have a great night.